You retired too?
Not me. I'm in my prime.
All right.
I think we got it.
Yeah.
We did it.
Nice. I look rough, man. This weight cut's getting to me.
I feel rough, and I'm wearing a hat, so you could. Hats are helpful.
Yeah. Well, I'm due for a haircut, so I'll start. Have you ever heard of Spice Adams, or do you follow Spice Adams?
No,
No.
I live under a rock right now.
Yeah, well, I do too now that I'm off of social media. So, but anyways, I used to be on social media. I used to follow this Bears. He was a former Bears player named Spice Adams. But anyways, he has this whole like short on like before a haircut and then like after a haircut, like the just like the lack of confidence that you have before a haircut and then like after like getting a haircut, how like you just like have like this like insanely high level of confidence. But anyways, I'll send it to you.
Even on a bad hair day with your amount of hair, I would have an insane level of confidence.
Yeah, no, my thank you. Yeah,
What's your secret? Do you have a routine? Are you on finasteride? You've been on.
no, so I'm not. I mean, obviously, like I think at least what was taught to me and I mean, in previous before med school, like I mean, just like basic like genetics, right? I mean, what's taught to us is like male pattern baldness, like it's genetic, usually on the mom side, right? Like your mom's grandfather or your mom, I mean, your mom's dad, so your maternal grandfather. That I guess dictates a lot of your if you're gonna have male pattern baldness or not,
I've
right?
heard, but I never really believed it as soon as I took a genetics course.
Yeah, no, exactly. So like I feel like I mean, I understand like it's like learning, right? Learning is interesting, right? Because like when or learning or teaching, even teaching is interesting because like when you're teaching like beginners, right? If you've ever taught jiu-jitsu to like brand new white belts or people right off the street, like there's only a certain amount of depth that you can have, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to like you have to omit certain things or you have to give people a pretty broad generalization, but you just want them to like at least grasp some basic understanding. So yeah, you're not like going to go like fully in depth, right? So I feel like that's obviously happening like in the sciences, right, or the health sciences.
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah,
Well,
right. So
everywhere.
what they teach you, right? Like I mean, there's things that I was taught like in like my pre-med classes and then even like my med school classes where like I have like a hard time like believing some of them now, like, and I'm not saying like they were wrong or necessarily, but I just feel like there was like a huge generalization in some of the teachings. And then on top of that, like then you have like the dangers of groupthink, right? Like groupthink's big in med school. I'm sorry, like I know you're in med school right now, med school, but even more so like in residency, like I felt like the groupthink was super strong, right? Like you just have to it's almost like a religion. Like you just have to like you have to buy into some of the things that are like taught, right? So
That's
like one of the things that I'll say, huh?
that's the answer.
No, one of the things I'm gonna say, and like people are gonna be like, "Oh, that's messed up," or like that's not nice. And I'll be like, as this podcast like hopefully grows, like I think people will realize like I'm not a very nice person. like I think I'm nice. Like I like to be nice to people like that I interact with, but like I would rather choose being genuine and honest sometimes than being nice, right?
Well,
So
it's a really shitty podcast if we don't tell the truth. So we should
yeah.
there. I think that's a good place to be. I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, so I'm going to say something, and as a doctor, like, maybe like it's something that will be frowned upon, but like, okay, so what was taught to me, right? Or there was a test question, right? This was a board test question, right? that I was, it was on like my, like when you study for the USMLE, you'll have you'll buy one of those test banks, right? I
Yeah,
can't even remember yeah. I mean, honestly, you should probably even start now if you can. Like, it's a good way to like really start to get familiar with like, the question stems and buzzwords and things like that. Cause like, when you're in med school, like you're really just a professional test taker. That's really like your job.
yeah.
I'm sure you're learning, but you're going to take so many tests. Like you actually have to become really adept at like test taking. And like, sorry, but if you're one of those people who says like, oh, like I'm smart and I learn, but I'm not a good test taker, like med school may not be for you unless if you can adapt quickly and like start getting good at taking tests.
It is not for you. It is not for you,
Yeah,
because
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
work and you'll learn. Like I've did plenty of learning on my first anatomy exam, and I got blown out of the damn water. Like
Sure.
I did a
Sure.
lot of learning. I did more learning in 2 weeks than I've ever done my whole life, and I got
Right.
blown away. And
Right.
then I made some changes, and now I'm floating and I'm not sinking, and that feels great. But
Right. Right.
yeah, I in both
But
cases I was learning a lot. I just I had to switch into, I guess I had to go into performance mode, test taking mode.
right. So I mean, like, so part of being a good test taker is what? Like thinking about what they're asking you and the answer that they want, right? Like that's like a good test taking like mentality, I think. You have to give the answer that that they want you to give, right?
Yep.
So that's a way to get a good score on your test. But that in itself is a dangerous way of going about education, right? Because think about this, like if I know that the test maker wants me to think and answer a certain way, that's in essence sort of like pushing a way of thought onto me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, going back to like there's one thing that I had like a really big problem with in med school. Like it's just one small thing. It might not be a small thing to other people, and I'm sorry if I'm offending people. But okay, so basically they're like this was again a board question or a board question that you were supposed to like be prepared for. It was like, okay, like the incidence of type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, right? They're saying like both are genetically linked. Which one has a stronger genetic predisposition, type 1 or type 2?
Well, I know you can get type 2 with just a really crummy lifestyle.
Right.
I'm going to say I think type 1 is going to be something that can essentially happen to you despite your
And you have
best
no
effort.
control over it, right? Like you have no control over getting type 1 diabetes. Like it's not because like you chose like a poor lifestyle. Like when you're talking about like epigenetics, right? Like which genes get turned on and turned off. Like maybe, maybe not, but most likely, especially because you're diagnosed like in your what? You're like between the ages of like 5 and like 20 usually, or whatever. 5 and like, you're usually type 1 diabetes gets diagnosed in like early teens, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can think of two classmates that I have that they're young, skinny guys that have insulin pumps.
Right. Right. So again, it's like at that point you can pretty much safely argue that yes, it's like you don't have any control of getting type 1 diabetes, right? So when I think
I think this
huh?
is going already.
Yeah. So like I when that question was first asked to me, I was like, obviously type 1 diabetes. Because when I think about like genetic predisposition or like a genetic link, right? I think about like, hey, like I don't like I don't have much control over it. It's just going to happen. Like my genes are going to express this, right? And as a result, I will like that is what my reality is going to become, right? Like being a type 1 diabetic, and that's in that kind of scenario, right? So
That
when I
wasn't
think of that, I go, huh?
Was that the wrong answer for the question?
Oh yeah, so that's the wrong. Like according to the test, like they're like, no. Type 2 diabetes has a stronger genetic link, right? Which I'm sorry, I call bullshit on that, right? I strongly call bullshit on that. Like what I see in my clinical practice
Right.
is yes, people telling me that there's type 2 diabetes in my family, meaning my whatever grandmother has it or my dad has it, my mom has it, somebody in the family like very closely linked has type 2 diabetes, okay? So now these people come in and say, hey, like I want to make sure I don't have type 2 diabetes, and you check their hemoglobin A1C and it's like 5.9 or 6 or 6.1, right? So they're younger, they seem healthier or healthy enough, right? They're younger people, maybe like in the early 30s or late 30s or 40s, or so they have not gotten type 2 diabetes yet. Yes, they're more predisposed, and their A1C is telling me that they're almost, they're getting towards diabetes. So yes, they need to be more careful. than maybe the average person that doesn't have a genetic link. But like, I'm sorry, like those people can still prevent type 2 diabetes from happening. They maybe in their whole life they can prevent type 2 diabetes from happening. They are more predisposed in the average population, but I really feel like these people, if they're properly like coached right by their doctor, if they properly like do, they choose the proper diet, they have a good exercise, they can prevent type 2 diabetes in their entire lifetime, in the 70, 80, 90, 100 years of life that they have, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But a type 1 diabetic, right? Yeah, no, but like a type 1 diabetic, what the hell are they going to do? They can't do anything to stop it, or they can't do it. I mean, I don't know of anything they can do to prevent type 1 diabetes in that scenario. So to me, that seems like they have a stronger genetic predisposition.
Yeah, the people that write board questions and then like the insurance coders, those are
Yeah.
like two groups of people that have a lot of influence over the current state of medicine. And there's another party on this three-legged stool, and that's the pharmaceutical companies
Sure.
that are funding or choosing not to fund certain research that drives the textbook publishing and funds the professors that are writing those textbooks and sort of carrying out the curriculum. And,
Oh, I feel like this podcast is going down a dangerous dangerous route.
well, we do jujitsu, so we're ready for that. Like we're all set. I have my tinfoil around here somewhere.
Yeah.
I've
No,
been
but yeah. So I mean, like, that's an example. Like I've been thinking about this a little bit, through my med school years and my residency years. Like, it's interesting because now like you're away from it, so you get to like process it. And like, so obviously some of the lessons and teaching were, incredible, and like they have made me have given me the ability to work and perform the way I can now. Right. Like it was very important to get like a strong foundation in the basic sciences and then clinical practice and everything that I got. So for that, I'm grateful. But there's certain like isolated things where I was like, that was weird. Like that was weird that was like so strongly like, sorry, shoved down my throat. Like you have to believe that type 2 diabetes is stronger genetic link than type 1 diabetes. And I'm sorry, like, unless if you can like, I mean, give me just like data over and over again on like numerous studies that prove that, I'm not gonna believe it. I'm sorry. Like that's one thing that I refuse to believe.
Yeah, medicine's a really weird game, and I appreciate being able to talk to people like you that are ready to like think about this critically. I don't have any. Well, there's a very small clinical component of my curriculum for this block because it's just anatomy. But we are a DO school, and so structure and function is like one of the principles of osteopathic medicine, like how they interact. So we get some clinical correlates of what's going on there, but it's very minimal, and it's definitely not the time when the professors are entertaining questions about these like wide ranging pathologies. They're like, no, you have more work to do. You need to memorize the sacral nerve roots because you don't know those. Right. And I'm like, understand.
Yeah.
I will do that.
That's interesting though. So like, so it'll be interesting to see like as you go through med school, like what your take is on, because like, okay, so my residency was half MD, half DO.
Cool.
Like literally like split down the middle. So like I'm an MD, right? So like the med school I happened to go to gave me like the MD. But yeah, so like my best friend in residency was a DO, and these are like conversations I'd have with him every now and then during our free time about like, what his training was like and how was it different?
Yeah, because I wouldn't. I don't have anything to compare it to, and usually, like if you're an MD, you don't have anything to compare it to. So I will say that I'm using this special resource called Med School Boot Camp, and shout out to them. You guys are totally saving my ass right now. But they do breakdowns of like gross anatomy, and they have like a really good question bank, and so I'm pretty much using the slides from my professor's lectures, and then I go over there to actually learn, because as much as I love my professors and I know that they worked hard to accomplish their credentials and get these teaching positions, they spent time becoming subject matter experts, and I need a teaching and learning programming expert to
Oh, for
get.
sure.
So I'm not, I figured out like I think I texted you. I was like, yeah, not going to lectures. So I know other MD students are going to be using the boot camp,
Right.
and so I don't think that, the structural implications of and functional implications of anatomy are really different at this point. The one thing that I am learning though in this block is they are sprinkling in, OMM, which is osteopathic manipulative medicine.
Okay.
And so far, I'm not super impressed, even
Okay.
though I am a like dyed in the wool holistic future holistic provider. I'm like so dedicated to the holistic patient approach and really understanding like even the spiritual component of the patient physician relationship. But I'm really excited to learn how to apply understanding people's gait cycle, like the way they walk and move,
Yeah.
into like how I would diagnose them. But right now, just like from the opening phases, I think my my criticism is like if osteopathic medicine was as awesome as it sort of presents itself to be, like we would know, and there wouldn't be any more MDs and everyone would be a DO. It would just not, like if it really worked extremely well and it had a really high degree of just precision and you could repeat it endlessly, and everyone who learned it, it was always, it's like, but it's kind of like, it's sort of like an optional tool in your tool bag. And some people are really good at it and it works really well for them. But
Right.
besides that, it's like, it's not this absolutely essential component of medicine.
Right.
And
Right.
just from right now, from right where I am right now, I'm like, that's understandable. And
Yeah.
I think that's too bad. I really think it's too bad. But I also I have like a biomechanics background, and that's all because of functional patterns. And I can just say right now, osteopathic medicine, well, as a first year medical student, so that take that with a grain of salt, but as a first year medical student, just the questions that my professors are struggling to answer about biomechanics, um, they're not very inspiring, because it's just like osteopathic medicine when it comes to like the gait cycle. There are people who know the gait cycle and biomechanics better than DOs. Um, so I'm hoping to combine like that outside knowledge with my practice someday. But it's, to me, it's understandable that it's not all the rage. It hasn't just totally
Right.
taken over medicine. Um, but I will say it has the potential to do that. I mean, because there's so much truth about the human body when you look at the way we run and how we walk.
Sure.
But
No, that's interesting you're saying that, because like I've had some experiences like that myself, right? So like, obviously like first year of med school, like anatomy is like very heavy, right? Anatomy lab is super super heavy, right? So you learn your anatomy, and you'll see this like after your first year though, like unless if you like choose to be like a anatomy lab TA, or really like you don't see much anatomy after that. So like whatever anatomy you're learning as far as like a med student and then as a doctor, it's only really required in your first year. Now, like if you go like a surgical route, right? If you do like a surgical residency, and then like a fellowship and all that, of course, like you'll keep seeing it, right? But in a lot of the other specialties, or in like primary care, which is what I do, I've had to brush up on my anatomy after my first year, meaning like just out of my own personal interest, mainly for like jujitsu and like injury healing, and getting my body to be like, properly like aligned and working the way I want it to. I've had to brush up on anatomy on my own,
yeah,
right? So, like for example, like I think I told you like I was dealing with like some pretty, what felt like pretty serious back issues like
oh,
2 or 3 years ago.
very
Huh?
serious. I mean, it sounded
Yeah, yeah,
very. I mean, like this has
yeah.
implications for your medical career.
Right. I mean, like, it's actually, I mean, it's not funny, but like, I mean, it kind of sounds funny now, but like, it's like, people are like, oh, like, why don't you become a surgeon? And like, when I really think about why I didn't become a surgeon, like, okay, maybe I didn't have the scores and all that, but maybe I did, right? So like, but like, at some point, I basically disqualified myself from becoming a surgeon, because I was scrubbed into like a 6 hour, like, it was like it was a breast reduction surgery, right? So it was a long surgery. Like there was like a lot. This patient was like, you know, morbidly obese, so there was like a lot of tissue to like, you know, reduce. Anyways, it was like a 6 hour case, right? And I could not stand for the full 6 hours. Like,
Mm.
could not, like, if my life, like if somebody put a gun to my head and said you need to stand for 6 hours, otherwise you die, like I'd die. Like it was getting that bad. Like that's how bad my back was at that point. So right away, like I was like, yeah, like I can't stand for long periods of time because of my back, and
Yeah.
basically disqualified myself from becoming a surgeon, right? So and then that was like my third year of med school, so things just like progressively kept getting worse, right? To the point where like, you know, I was waking up in the middle of the night with like sciatic, like really bad like neuropathy. It was getting pretty bad. It was getting to the point where like I was like, man, I don't know how much longer I'll be able to do jujitsu, right?
Yep.
So, anyways, like I finally was like, okay, like I got to do something about this. So I fortunately got like plugged into like this like a physical. He's like a physical therapist, but not really a physical therapist. I'm not like you're like I think there's really good physical therapists out there, but I feel like this guy was like, you know, the top of the top, right? Like he was referred. I was referred to him by a friend who owns like a boxing gym.
Yeah.
So I was just fortunate that like I met this guy through people, right? So I go to this guy, and you know, it's very different than any type of physical therapy I've seen. Like it's he basically like it's I still like I'm like processing like what I did with him for like for you know about a year. But he would just like have you like hold like poses, and like you would feel like you'd feel like your body reset. Like I would literally feel like almost like a chiropractic manipulation
Mm.
after holding like a pose for however long, right? So anyways, the point of me bringing this up is this guy's like anatomy knowledge crushed my anatomy knowledge, like just crushed it, right? Like to the point where I was feeling like self-conscious around him, right? And I don't even think my anatomy knowledge is like that bad. Like I mean, I obviously passed anatomy and passed like all the board exams and everything, so good enough, I guess.
Yeah.
But like he was just so quickly like, you know, naming all like the muscles of you know the back, the upper back, the lower back, the shoulders. Like I mean everything. He was just so quick to explain what was happening. I guess he figured like, hey, this guy's a doctor, he'll be able to follow. But I mean, it was like going over my head, right? So like I would like go after each session, like I would go home and like, you know, study the you know, all the like the deep muscles of the back and everything that he was saying that we're fixing, right? But yeah, so anyways, that's my experience of like how I guess minimal our anatomy knowledge is in med school, right? So to like to your point of like, hey, you have these professors where you're not impressed with what they're teaching and what they're showing. I mean, you know, I don't really blame them because that's not really like their specialty, right? Like this guy, right? Like where I'm saying like, oh, he's a physical therapist. Like his 9 to 5, right? His day to day is, you know, the muscles of the back, right? The muscles of the back, the muscles
This
of
is
the leg.
yeah, really,
Like that's what
really
he's dealing with
important.
all day.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a really good point. Um, and I think that it's important to be humble, and so I don't have a problem acknowledging this, but
Yep.
doctors, especially med school, is like it's actually too much about too many things to be useful. That's why you go to specialize.
Well, okay, so it's a lifetime of learning, right? So like I guess we have like an analogy with jiu-jitsu, right? So you just got your black belt, right?
Yeah.
You just got your black belt. So what I guarantee you somebody told you this, or and if they didn't, somebody should have told you this. When you get your black belt, another black belt will tell you, which is what I was told to me, is now that you've gotten your black belt, it's time to really start learning jiu-jitsu. Like
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu really starts after you get your black belt. So the analogy that I'll give to you as far as medicine goes, and at least this is what I'm experiencing, medicine really starts after you finish med school,
That
right?
makes
Like
perfect sense. Yeah, and I
yeah.
completely yeah, I think I completely agree. And it's also but when medicine starts, it's only going to be starting in this range called your specialty. You have a very broad one. Family medicine is what like the broadest. Like that general
Yeah.
surgery and family medicine are like that's about as broad as it gets. They're kind of like two different worlds. But
Right.
yeah, so that's true. I think that physicians, it's very important to understand anatomy. I'm taught by an anatomist, so he has a PhD in anatomy. He's not a
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not a physician. He has a PhD in anatomy. He's taught at a lot of other medical schools,
Right.
and I love him to death. I think he's great. Um,
But see, again, that's the problem. I think it's fantastic that he's an anatomist and not a physician, because you have somebody who's. But okay, so now he has to teach though at your level. No offense.
yeah,
And
and
yeah,
yeah, he's still
yeah,
being like it is the hardest I've ever worked, and it is
right,
changing me as a person. I'm being transformed
right,
before your very eyes right now because of what I'm going through.
right.
He is still holding back.
Yeah, he has to like dumb it down, and it's not to say you're dumb, right? But it's the same thing of like when we explain things to our like in the clinical setting, I have to explain things to my patients, right? I have some patients that are very intelligent, right? They're whatever, maybe professionally they're very advanced, maybe they're just smart people, whatever it may be, and I can tell they could probably understand if I taught, showed them everything, and I'm able to, maybe go more in depth with certain patients, but I still have to, for the sake of making sure they're understanding and they're following and they're at least getting the gist of what's going on. Like,
Mhm.
it is my job as the teacher, right, to explain it and make sure that they're leaving the visit with a somewhat clear understanding of what is going on with their body, what is going on with whatever illness they're struggling with, right? And then so maybe I leave out or omit a lot of information just to make sure that I'm not overwhelming or confusing them,
That's
right?
honestly being a good doctor. Like you're supposed to tell them enough that they feel like they have some control over their life and that they understand
Right.
why things are happening, but not so much that they don't understand it and they feel more helpless.
Right.
That's
But
of
even then, though, sometimes they come back, not all the time, but every now and then they come back and say, "Oh, why didn't you tell me this?" Or, I mean, each patient is different. Some patients get upset that you didn't tell them that
yeah.
thing, or you didn't include that part of the information, right? So
Can
it's a
you?
challenge.
That's really it makes me chuckle because that can be pretty frustrating. Like,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
it's actually very interesting. I think it's a very interesting time to be a doctor, right? Because like, okay, so like I'm on this thing called ZocDoc, right? So we're like, my wife, who's the practice manager, basically, like she's set me up on ZocDoc, which is like a way for us to get like more patients, right? So we're getting a lot of new patients because like, they can just sign up for ZocDoc and then find a doctor. And obviously like having high reviews or high ratings on ZocDoc helps you get more patients because people like Google, like Yelp will pick like, the restaurant with the highest rating, right?
yeah,
Like that's what people will choose, right? So in this case, they'll choose the doctor with the highest rating. So it's important if you're going to use this service to like have a high rating. You
yeah.
should definitely have like the highest rating if you can.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a challenge in itself because we just did a like an ethics. Well, we have a couple ethics classes like lectures sort of sandwiched in when we on top of everything we're already doing, and the consumerist model of medicine is extremely prevalent,
Oh
and
yeah.
in a situation where it's like now you're competing like on Yelp with doctor reviews and stuff, it's like the incentive is there more than ever to just give people what they want.
Especially for me, I'm in private practice. So
So
the stakes are even higher for me, right? If
yeah,
I was working for some health company, right, or a health corporation, whatever, they would just feed me patients, right, and that would be it. But when you're like the one where it's like it's really up to like you have to do a good job and your patients have to be satisfied in order for them to keep coming back. Otherwise, you go under,
mhm.
right? Like the pressure's on, right? Um, so fortunately, I don't really feel the pressure like that much. But yeah, I mean, in the back of my head, I do realize it's important that my patients are happy. They leave getting what they think they're supposed to get. But obviously, the number one rule is do no harm, right? So how you're like in most scenarios it's fine, but like what if somebody comes in and they just like really think they should be given an antibiotic, and they don't have any signs of a bacterial infection, but they're not going to be happy leaving if you don't give them a Z-Pack, right? Or even something more, right? They're in pain and they really think they heard that Percocet is the best at handling their pain. And if they don't get Percocet, they're going to leave you a bad review. Right. So that does happen. Like that
That's
happens.
so wild. I can't believe, because, and then you can't say anything.
Yeah, and if you do, and I have tried, and like so like I'm not trying to brag, but I have a pretty good rating so far. But I do have a few bad reviews. So like, out of the couple hundred reviews, there's like 2 or 3 bad reviews, right?
Yeah.
Which I guess like that's just the numbers game, right? But like again, that brings down your rating, right? And that brings down your rating, and now all of a sudden you're like, damn, like I wish I didn't end up seeing that patient, or I wish I handled that patient differently to the point where they wouldn't have left me a bad review. And I can't lie but say yes, that it doesn't affect my medical decision making. At least I don't allow it to affect my medical decision making. But yeah, like the way you package the care, the way you kind of you have there's like so much damage control that also has to be gone into this whatever 15-20 minute visit that you're doing. So
That's, I mean, it's like, it's important for, I mean, if you own a practice, you have to look at medicine as a business. So that's a whole like Pandora's box that gets opened up when you're in that
yeah.
position.
Well, I
And
had so I'll give you an example. Like one of the bad ratings. Like I mean, I probably should stay off this ZocDoc app and not keep looking at my ratings because, But every now and then, I'm not gonna lie, I do go on there and just check. So one of my bad ratings is a 86-year-old woman, right? She came in because she thought she needed a colonoscopy. Okay, for a screening colonoscopy. Right? And I asked her, "Are you having any blood in your stool? Have you ever had an abnormal colonoscopy before? Do you have a family history of colon cancer?" And it was all no, 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 no. Right? Everything was no.
hmm,
So I was like, "Well, I mean, you don't really need a colonoscopy at this stage." Like she had her last colonoscopy at 75 and it was normal, and every colonoscopy before then was normal, and she's having no abnormal bowel habits, no blood in the stool. She's not anemic, nothing. And I was just like, yeah, I mean, like if you really want one, I can send you to a GI doctor, but I really don't think you need one. Right. And then she's like, okay, cool. Like, she was very pleasant and she's like, thank you for your time. And she left. But then she goes home and leaves me like this like scathing review about how like it was a waste of her time. Like she had to wait a long time, which she didn't, but she said that she had to wait a long time just to be told that she doesn't need a colonoscopy. Right. And then she said that like, I would not recommend this doctor to anybody. And I was just like, okay, like, like what, I don't know how else I could have, handled that visit, right? Other than, yes, ordering, getting her set up for a colonoscopy. That's the only way that she would have been happy.
yeah.
But, sorry, the guidelines say that she does not need one, right? And it would be an unnecessary screening. Like, what if she perfed during the colonoscopy, right? Like, what if something horrible happened during the colonoscopy? Right, and
Yeah.
you're doing a procedure that the patient does not need.
You don't do those. That just, yeah, that doesn't sound like a good situation. There was something I was going to say. I can't remember, but
Yeah, so I'm gonna try my best not to vent about my 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 situation as a physician in private practice, because this will just turn into a big therapy session for Dr. Rayhan.
well, so how's your weight cut going? And what are you are cutting weight? Because
Yeah.
I think you were competing at lightweight, but the no gi and gi lightweight are like very different things.
Right. Yeah, no, so yeah, I'm doing lightweight for Master Worlds in the gi,
Yeah.
which is 168 with the gi on. So I'll have to be like 164. So this morning I woke up at like 173. So I have still a ways to go, and that's on Thursday. So, but then on Friday I'm doing no-gi Jiu Jitsu Con, but at middleweight, which is 175.6.
That's fine.
So basically, like my mindset is like make the gi weight on Thursday, right? Fight, win, hopefully, and then go eat Thursday afternoon, evening, like make sure I'm strong, and then I don't as long as I don't like overeat like crazy, I should be able to make the middleweight no gi like without even worrying about it, about my fluid intake or anything like that.
Yeah, no, That sounds like the right way to do it. How many days apart are
Yeah,
the brackets? Is it like are they
just one day. One day. So
one day?
Thursday's gi. Yeah, Thursday's Master Worlds, and then no gi Jiu-Jitsu Con is Friday.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
just like basically just like a typical open weekend.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly, exactly. So ideally, like, that's what I want to, like, I want to start doing, the open weekends where, like, yes, I do gi and no gi. Now ideally I do lightweight for gi and middleweight for no gi. I don't have a problem making the middleweight um for no gi at all. It's just the gi. I'll be honest, I don't know if I can do lightweight like on just like a random weekend, like
a
it's
lot.
just, yeah, like, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's I don't want to, I mean, it's not horrible like it once was. Like, I mean, it's not like I'm like killing myself to make it, but yeah, I don't know if it's like I think my health is actually like would maybe, I hope not, but it might start to suffer if I'm trying to make this weight like once a month, type of thing.
Well,
That's
I
just,
mean,
that might be too.
yeah, I go anytime I can, I try and go up in weight.
Yeah, yeah, we've talked. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's. I hear you. I mean,
You would get big, like jacked, so much faster than I do because I'm within like 4 pounds of the most amount of muscle I've ever had on my frame, but you
right.
used to weigh like 300 or 285.
Yeah,
Pretty sure that you would have been like you conservatively 235 pounds of muscle. Like that was a very safe like estimate that you could have been like a lean 235, athlete underneath that 285 extra weight.
yeah.
And
No,
so that
I hear you.
the muscle memory is there. Like
Yeah,
you like putting the lean mass on would be significantly easier for you. Just
right.
something
No,
I think about.
I, I hear you. I mean, mobility is a big part of it for me. Like, I feel like I move the best that I can possibly move in my low 170s.
Mhm.
you know so that's really what it's about, because I mean, like, everyone has a different mentality towards things, but like strength, sure, it's a factor, and I like being strong. I like feeling strong. It would be nice to be stronger than my opponent, in all of my matches. But I think for me, mobility is more, I get more confidence from my if my mobility feels good. If I'm not able to move well, I feel like I can't do the type of jiu-jitsu I want to do.
If I couldn't like if me getting bigger came at a cost to my mobility, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so it was literally like I refused to do it and I stayed away from it once I realized that that could happen until I found a way to get bigger that didn't inhibit my movement. It could
Right.
inhibit cardio capacity, and that's
Sure.
a like maybe downstream, but you're using a different energy system. You have to have a different engine to move a bigger body.
Right. Right.
In terms of like my mobility, like my range of motion, and like the kinds of moves I can hit, and like being able to invert and all that stuff, it's like yeah, no problems. But it took a while to find that training method, and then it took almost even longer to learn it, and then figure out
Right.
how to get it to put muscle on my body was like pretty a real like a huge journey that I ended up getting certified. It took it, which was expensive, but I ended up getting certified in functional patterns as I basically explored that, and that ended up being
Right.
San Diego was functional patterns is like a huge part of that for me. But understood,
That's
and
really
if that's the case, it's like yeah, mobility. You need to move if you're trying to do jujitsu. You need to move, and so that
Yeah.
until
No, I mean, I think
yeah.
so. So there's the jujitsu aspect of it too, of course, and like I think that's something that we've established that that's something that affects or it definitely changes the way we think, right? In the sense, or as far as like even like programming, right? Like how you're going to program your training and all that. A lot of it is going to come down to like, okay, hey, I'm doing this tournament. So, like I have to make this weight. I have to, I'm fighting these specific opponents. So based on that, your your training, your lifting, your diet, you know, is going to be based upon that for the next few weeks or next few months, right? Which is fine, but I also think like it's also like the lifestyle that you're after too, right? Like that's something that I didn't really used to think about, but I think about now a little bit too. Like I'll give you an example. Like this morning, right? So like before we started this podcast, like my morning was I woke up. It's Saturday, so I slept in a little bit. I woke up at 8, right? I gave myself like an hour to like wake up, and then I'm fortunate where I have mats in my garage, so I had like a pretty solid group of guys come over this morning at 9 a.m. to train nogi, right? So it basically was like a nogi open mat with me and 4 other guys, so like five guys, right, of training nogi. And so we trained. We did nogi. We did I think it was just 6-minute rounds, but we did had to be at least, we did over an hour, so we did at least 10 of the 6-minute rounds, right? And then like I immediately after that like got in the cold plunge and did a cold plunge for 3 minutes, and then I started lifting right afterwards and like drank like matcha out in the sun and lifted. It was like one of the best mornings I've had. Like, you know, like it's just fantastic. I'm like in such a good mood because of the morning I just had, right? I woke up properly, like got sunlight in my eyes, trained ice cold plunge, and then trained lifted legs, right? Okay, so I texted you at like 12:30. So I basically trained for like 3.5 hours, right? I trained for 3.5 hours, and like, you know, like I'll deny my age all day, but every now and then, like I'll bring it up. I'm 37, right? So that's not old by any means, but you know I have a lot of 37-year-old patients. I have a lot of friends who are like 37 or whatever in their late 30s, and I'm happy to say that like a lot of them cannot train for 3.5 hours, right? It's not a competition. Yeah, it's not a competition, but I'm just saying like personally, and even for me, like my expectation of where I'd be at in my my mid to late 30s, I'm happy to say that I have more energy and I'm able to train for longer. My muscular endurance, my joints, things feel better than I could have hoped for, right? And then also now that this back issue that I was talking about earlier, that's healed up very nicely. So that's also not bothering me or limiting me or restricting me, right? So that's what I truly enjoy, like the ability to like do what I love to do pain-free, and also having like a high amount of energy. Like you know how you're saying like, yes, like when you get bigger, like your cardio is not as good, right? So I've experienced that in the past where like, yes, I was a little bit bigger than I am now, where I felt like my cardio was a limiting factor in my training, right? And I still sometimes feel that, like when I come back from vacation, right? Like I'm going to Cancun after this tournament. So like if I'm like a total idiot in Cancun and just like eating and drinking everything I want and just like being, you know, just being a slob, I'm going to come back and those first few training sessions will be harder than they need to be, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so but when I experience that, like when I don't feel good in training or if my cardio is not good, like I start to hate myself in those moments where I go like, like, you know, that why did you do this to yourself?
Yeah.
Why are you like, you know, like, especially now that I've experienced how good I can feel, right?
Yeah.
So like that has become a very important part of my, maybe this sounds unhealthy, but a very important part of my happiness is knowing that I can do the things I love and do it with high energy, without pain, you know, without regret later, a couple hours later, of how stiff and sore I got from training too much, right? So, okay, so
shame on you. Shame on you for making that something that you enjoy, because you shouldn't enjoy. That's toxic masculinity.
yes, well, toxic masculinity. Also, I mean, somebody would probably listen to this and say like, "Oh, like that's a very unhealthy, like,
You can't be
thing to."
with
Yeah,
just watching Netflix every night. Like you can't be happy like that. Like, wow,
yeah, no, I mean, like, you know, so I mean, like, it is like when I'm really honest with myself, like, I enjoy being able to do things physically that I would not be able to do otherwise, right? Like, meaning, like, if I did not take care of myself to the level that I take care of myself, if I didn't eat the diet that I do, and also, yes, being at the weight that I'm at, I think also helps me to have that level of activity, right? Because I'm not carrying around extra weight, and I've felt that before because I have, right? I've been a heavier guy, so I know what it feels like to carry around that extra weight, right? And there's not a knock on like bigger, stronger guys or muscular guys, but it comes at an expense, or at least I felt like it came at an expense where I could not, even like in my 20s when I was like, you know, when I just got done playing football and I was 280 pounds, and you told me, hey, go work out for 3.5 hours, right? I couldn't do it. Not at the level that if I had to do the same workout I just did today, like the level of just because it's like when you're carrying that much weight, like it's hard. You get tired faster,
Yeah, you
right?
could do some pretty impressive things to another human body, but you not for as long.
No, right,
You know,
right.
that's
So yeah,
they you have to have a different programming, even just for your training if you're going to be bigger. And
exactly.
I'm always figuring out more about that. But um, yeah, so and there's a lot of guys. It's like I guess so. This is a different population of people. But and I for some reason maybe it's because I do jujitsu and I'm like more in the heavyweight side of things. I seem to like see people that are like the critical part of their happiness is being able to bench more than 225 or it
Yeah,
maybe it's higher, you know, it's like their bench and their squat have to, you know, those numbers have to be, it's like I only like for me to be happy I have to be at least this strong, and it's like a really high like set mark, but it's also it comes with like a social component of like
right.
I'm in the gym. I lift this heavy. I am towing the line of being, you know, I can. This is the standard, and I'm there or above it, and now I'm happy in life because when I go to the gym, I get
Right.
respect. And maybe jujitsu has like elements of that we both enjoy. That's probably true. I mean, I really it's
Well,
cool to be able to just like tie up a blue belt and just you know completely eviscerate them in like 30 seconds.
yeah.
I mean,
No, I
that's
hear you, but like, so it's like
that 10 years
it's
ago.
actually funny. It's actually funny you say that because I may have talked to you about this before in the past, but it's I mean, I'll say, oh, it's really funny, but maybe it's not funny. But so, anyways, like, so I played football, right, in high school and college, and then lately, like, I've had the pleasure of like meeting up with a lot of my former teammates, right,
Oh,
that I
cool.
played football with, right. So this is we're talking about I stopped playing football in 2008, right. So I'm talking about guys that I haven't seen since 2008, really, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2008, right? So what is it? 2024, right? So I mean, do the math, right? Like I mean, it's been
A
quite some time.
long time for people's lifestyles to show up.
Right. So okay, so we're quite a few years away, right? We're what 16 years, right? The math's correct on that. Yeah, so 16 years after we got done playing football. So they see me. Some of them maybe have followed my journey. Some of them have not. But even then, there's like a shock of like, oh my god, like look at you, like you're 110 pounds lighter than what we remember you as, right?
I wouldn't
Okay, so
recognize.
that's
I don't. I'd be surprised if they could recognize you. That's pretty impressive.
yeah. So anyway, so like we're hanging out, right? And the converse, so a lot, and then so not to knock these guys, but a lot of these guys are just as big, or possibly in some cases they're bigger
Yeah.
than they played when they played football, right? Now there some of them are bigger for the right reasons, some of them are bigger for the wrong reasons, right? Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's just it happens because it's like oh, that happens. I mean, yeah, at college sports, it's like if you don't make it into the next
Right.
athletic endeavor, or you don't find a martial art that
Right.
you can go at your own pace. You know, it's like yeah.
Right. So and I don't start these conversations, right? I'm just for the record, I'm not the one starting the conversation. So I'm talking to these guys, right? We're talking, and then they always bring it up. They always bring up about how like they really need to start exercising again, or they need to start losing weight, right? But it's interesting you say that because they always say so. Like, let's say a guy's like 275 or 280, right? He's still 280 pounds, 16 years after being done playing football, right? He's
Yeah.
still that weight, right? So I'll be like, yeah, man, that's cool. Like, yeah, you can do it. Like it just takes time, but you can do it, right? So I'll be encouraging them, but they'll always follow that up with, I would like to get down to like 240, but I need to be at least 240 because I feel like if I was slower than 240, I'd be very weak, right? Or
That's
I
funny.
wouldn't be as
I'm like
strong.
I'm like 212
Yeah,
and like lean 240 naturally does not seem to be in the cards. Just like maybe it is, but I have doubts.
right.
Um, So these guys are probably like just like taller and just like we're already like big humans to begin with. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's that 240 is an interesting number.
No, like at least 220. There's either way. That what I'm saying is like there's like a not a ceiling, like there's like a floor, right? Where they're
Yeah,
like, no,
yeah,
I can't.
sure.
Like I would like to get to this weight, but anything below that, I will be like this like frail, weak, shallow, like a very hollow version of myself. You know, like they'll just be like, oh, like that's
Yeah.
if I get any lower than that, that's trouble. You know?
Dude, if we trained this week, like you would mop the floor with me, even though I've got 40 pounds on you. Because and I am a black belt, like I know how to wrestle, I can grapple, but I am not in shape. Like not like I
Okay.
could, like I might have like one good round, but that was
Sure.
pretty
Sure.
much what I had today. And it's just funny to think about that. Like just funny because and that just comes down to like, Tom DeBlass and Joe Rogan always just shaming people for like, you got to train because you just have no idea. You just have no idea what another person can
Right.
do. And I do, and I'm happy to have a place that I can train and people understand that like I know a lot, but I'm also in med school and I gotta pass my classes before I can like be in great shape. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
in a dilemma where I have to actually choose between passing and like being in great shape. I'm in okay shape,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a tough decision every week right now. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't miss that. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I don't miss that. Like I mean, obviously I have responsibility to like my patients and like doing a good job. But
yeah,
like the idea of like, oh, like hey, if I do like one extra training session, like my life could be over because I might fail these exams, and if I fail these exams, like that's it. I'm out of med school and like my career is over. Like that is like a weird level of stress that I don't think most people will ever
no,
experience.
no,
Uh,
it's
and it's a
weird.
good thing that most people will never experience.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I was really glad that you were able to do this episode today because that is something I'm definitely going through. And I'm like, Rayhan did it, but I actually had like this practice because on top of that, it's like I didn't have like the sessions that I have during the week and like this morning were like not well attended and I had like a few misses last week, and I was like, if people can't come and make it work on my schedule, those are training sessions I don't get.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I'm at the longer I'm here, I've only been here 7 weeks, and I'm slowly like adding more people to the situation and finding other people, other opportunities, and but it's a crucible because they're also trying to weed us out in the first block.
yep,
So
yep, yep.
me is definitely the first block, and they're trying to because they have to get us up to speed. They have to
Yeah.
push like right out the
No,
gate.
it's a real thing, man, and like they don't really tell you that, you know. I mean, like obviously, like you got into like American med school, so good for you. But like in the Caribbean med school, like man, I mean, it's sorry, like I'll say it now that I'm out of it, that I've like I
They
don't
try and kill
I
you. Those are more cutthroat than
Oh
anything.
no, dude! Like, it is like honestly, it's unethical. Like, hopefully I don't suffer any repercussions for saying what I do now that I'm away from it. But man, like honestly, like no, like there's a reason it's a Caribbean med school. Like they cannot do what they do like there in America. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like
yeah,
it should be illegal. Like they're basically like yeah, like like look at their brochures. They say like oh like 90% of our students match in an American residency. Yeah, because you cut out 70% of the class,
yeah. Like
right?
it's like they won't let you take the boards until you take their pre-board test or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
And then
No, it's like I mean okay, so it's kind of messed up, but like I have like this like friend group from the Caribbean med school that I still stay in touch with,
yeah.
and like one of my friends he has like a sick sense of humor, so he sent me a photo from our white coat ceremony. Okay, so it's our white coat ceremony, right? So all of the med students that in my class had
But
started, right? So like
it's
a
like
hundred.
first week. That's like first week stuff.
Yeah. So it's everybody. No one has filled out yet, right? So he sent me this photo and he put a red X on the face of everyone who did not match in a residency.
Oh,
Okay, okay. 70 out of the 100 students have an X on their face.
okay, guys, you heard it here first. That
Yep.
clip might need to be circulated around the internet from someone who's been there and done that.
Yeah.
Really important stuff to know. Yikes.
Yeah. So like, okay, like, I mean, like
More
people will come up.
too. Like they're and that you can't do federal student loans.
Yeah.
So
Oh no, dude, it was so sad, Scott. I'm telling you, like I still like I don't want to be dramatic and say I have like nightmares, but like it was so sad because like I'm talking about like like so the Caribbean med school, a lot of people like not a lot, but some of the people that go there are like okay, they had like a career doing something else, right? And like I had a few classmates that were like in their like 30s and 40s, like late 30s and 40s. They brought their whole families with them to the island, right? I'm talking about like they brought their wife and like their like 3 children to the island so they can like
yeah, we have a lot of young families too, but they're like
so
it's like they're like dudes that are like 23 and they have like 4 kids.
Right. So they like uproot. So they had like they had that whole career as I don't know like a chemical engineer, or they had a career as like whatever. They were doing something. Maybe within medicine or maybe outside of medicine. But like they said, hey, I'm gonna go pursue medicine. So they uprooted their family. They took their kids out of school. They quit their previous career. They came to this Caribbean island, right, to do their med school, right? And then in the first 2 or 3 months, they fail out because of like one bad test, right? They fail out, and now they have to move themselves and their entire family back to North Carolina or wherever they were.
Yeah.
Right. And now like they're just like, what do I do with my life? Like what like. And you just like when you're in that situation, you're just seeing like your friends left and right just like fall dying. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like Hunger Games style. You're just watching people just like
that's like Survivor, the med school edition or something.
It really is. It really is. And like that's the thing. So if you meet, I mean, for the most part, like I'm not gonna be dramatic. I don't want to speak for every Caribbean medical school graduate out there, but like obviously I'm friends with plenty of them. Yeah. When you really sit down and talk to us, right? Like we all have like some like deep hidden traumas. You know what I'm saying? Like where we're like, yeah, I was.
You guys got to like. About it. I'm glad that we're having this conversation.
Yeah, no, but so the thing is, like, people don't want to talk about it, right? But, and that's why I think they keep getting away with it.
This is my I've been suspicious of those schools, but my final take on it is they are harder schools that take anybody, including lots of people that shouldn't have been at any med school.
Right. Sure.
So kudos to you if you can pull it off, because you could have done great in the States.
Sure.
Like 100%.
Thank you. Yeah.
But because you went to a Caribbean school, you took a harder route, and they took a lot of people on that they shouldn't have, and they do it out of greed.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's all financial, and then like it's just all mind games, and they keep like they say stuff to you like like it's almost like brainwashing when they tell you like, oh, like you're a Caribbean grad, so like you have to work harder than everybody else, and like like even like when it came to like matching in residencies, they were like, yeah, like like it's gonna be really hard to match in a residency. You better like if you don't get the score, you might as well not even apply. Blah blah blah. Like it just like you just develop like all these like weird like tics and worries and anxieties and stresses. Like man, when I got out of med school, like I was I didn't really realize it while I was going through it, but like I was a mess. Like I was like my sleep was horrible. Like my hormones felt like they were all off. Like I just felt like like I don't mean to be like dramatic, but like when you talk about like adrenal fatigue, right, and like hypercortisolism, like yeah, I think I had like a lot of the symptoms. You
couldn't really train very consistently either.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Push ups and pull ups. I mean, you probably had a CrossFit gym or whatever. But yeah, like that's Well, okay, you heard it here first, folks. Don't go to those places. If you can, avoid it.
Yeah, so like people will come up to me, right? It's like it's like public knowledge, right? Like on my brochures, like for my clinic, it says like where I went to med school, right? So people go, oh yeah, you went to the Caribbean med school. So I'll have like younger people come up to me and be like, oh, like what was your experience like at the Caribbean med school? Like I'm thinking about going to Ross or AUC or St. George's, or like I'm thinking about applying. Like what was your experience, right? I don't discourage them. I don't say, hey, don't go there. I just say if you can get into an American med school, go to the American med school.
Yeah.
That's what I say. I say if you can get in the American med school, definitely go in the American med school. But if you can't get in and you really want to be a doctor, fine. It's a route. It can work out for you, but just know that you need to be vigilant. Like it's really you're the 4 years that you are affiliated with that Caribbean med school, you have to have a high level of vigilance because they're trying to, I'm sorry, like there's no other way to say it other than they're trying to get you. They're trying to catch you slipping up, and they will F up your life when you do slip up. And like there's no leeway. Like in some of the scenarios, there's no leeway. It's like literally like there's such a strong cutoff. If you are below a certain GPA, that's it. You are out. Like if you're like, I'm talking about you're 0.02 below the cutoff, they'll cut you.
Yeah, that just confirms like every horror story that I've heard about it. And I mean, but it's nice to hear that from someone who's like did it successfully too. And I really think you got to respect the Caribbean med school grads because they had a harder route.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. But like, I think that's the thing. Like, I think like when you are successful in the Caribbean med school route, you're just like, I'm going to be quiet because like you got through, you succeeded. Right.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's how a lot of like my classmates, as a lot of like the other, like in my residency, there was like a good amount of Caribbean med school grads, but like, they're just like happy to be like away and done with it. And they just want to like break ties. So they're like, okay, cool. Like I'm done with this. But like, I mean, what about all the people that like failed out? What about all the people's lives that were like, not to be dramatic, but what about all the people's lives who were ruined in the process? Right. I saw like marriages collapse over there, man. Like marriages collapse.
That happens in regular med school too.
Yeah, but I'm talking like just the amount of stress that is put on students that go down there.
It's like I have a lot going on, and then but to imagine doing it over there.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, because like so like it's also the logistical things too. Like right, you're like, oh, I'm good in like so the thing that drives me crazy, Scott, is I'll have like people, like random people or patients or like I don't know, like drug reps, like these people will come by and they go, oh, like I heard you went to med school in like St. Martin, like that must have been so amazing. What did you do? Were you on the beach all day? No, I'm not even kidding. I've had people go like, oh, were you on the beach all day? Like,
oh my
like, well, how did you have any time to study? Like you were on a Caribbean island, like, and I'm just like, like I'm just like so like it just like it gets me so tight, man, because like they have no idea. Like, yes, like sure, if you go to St. Martin for a vacation for 5 days, you'll have a great time. But like if you live there, right? Like St. Martin, like yeah, it's beautiful, but like living there, like sorry, like not to sound like a spoiled American, but yeah, like the power goes out all the time. You run out of water all the time. There's hurricanes, you know what I'm saying? Like I remember like I had like there was literally a hurricane, right? And like I studied through the hurricane because the day the hurricane ended, we had exams the next day or that morning.
That's
yeah.
That's
like,
it's pretty rough.
Yeah.
It's just
the thing. Sorry that you won't have to deal with like no like and it's good you don't have to deal with it, but I don't think there are things you're gonna have to deal with in Virginia. Like
we have well so I've already talked to a couple students that have been recycled from last year's class and they're returning, or in one case there's a student that went to another DO school in the States. And I think it was like Kansas something, College of Osteopathic Medicine, and they did 2 years and then they didn't pass their boards, or they passed one, like step one, but then they had to retake third year, but then they ended up just like dropping out and switching over to Liberty. And then there's another student who was like a Liberty first year student, and then they had to recycle and they're doing it again at the same school. But my perception of my faculty and the culture of the program is that I've never been more supported as a student.
Good. That's really nice to hear.
And they all agree. And so that's from one person who didn't do so hot in the first year. So they probably, basically what happened is they probably failed 2 courses in the course of first year, or just didn't pass them. So it's not even failing it. It's like they just got like a 65% probably is what happened. in 2 courses, and then they had from that point on, it was like maybe they had like 4 months off or 6 months off, but they just had to remediate. The other person was just like, yeah, like their brother's a DO, and they were like, I'm gonna be a doctor.
Right.
There's no question about that. But I came here because I didn't want to like start over or like retake what I guess like second year at the college I was at, and so I could come here and start over. But I'm really glad I did, because you
Right.
can feel the difference. And it's been so that for that reason, I'm really, God did a real number on just help making me choose this place. But like we got connected to like a pretty awesome community in a couple different areas like of our life, like just right out the gate, which has been great.
Yeah,
But
no, that's fantastic. And like, but I think so. Like again, I didn't go to an American med school, so I wouldn't know for sure. But just kind of what I'm talking to friends before this, and then now talking to you too, it just seems like the American med school route, although it is still difficult and still very challenging, and you're still expected to learn things at a very fast rate. And yes, you still have to take the same board exams and pass the same board exams. It feels like, or at least looks like, there's more safety nets,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Meaning that if you don't perform at the level that you're expected to perform, you're given a second, maybe a third chance.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
They
So
do it case by case, like for
yeah,
retaking a whole year. But
right,
you get one test. You can retake one test. That test will not be scored above a 70%, or in either case, you can't get above a 70% in a course where you had to retake a test. That's basically the
right.
policy.
Okay.
But they will do like a case by case basis for like readmitting you to redo a year.
Okay.
And they have a lot of support. So they do have a lot of safety nets. And
Okay.
after the first test, I had to talk to all of them, which is a little bit time consuming and a little bit frustrating. But now I'm chilling. I'm stable and I'm floating. But it's just like going back to like what you were saying. You're like, oh, I don't miss that. It's like, yeah, I do. I have had a couple points in the last 4 weeks where I had to choose between, um, do I want to stay in shape or do I want to study? And the only way I can describe that to someone who hasn't been exposed to this amount of information, or like that amount of work, is
Right.
like, well, one, no one's trying to actively bankrupt me, so I'll circle back to that, because that to me,
Right.
the Caribbean schools are like, they're like, we're gonna score some we're gonna feast on some people's bankruptcy claims here.
Right. Right.
That's
Right.
that's not happening over here. But and like, thank God, because that would just add to the stress that I'm describing. It's like I'm in I mean, we have a few people, I'm gonna say in a class of 160, we're gonna have less, like 20 people or less, that are A students, like getting like 90% and above. Almost all of them were great students. They had to be at least like towards the end of their college career to get in here.
Right.
um, but there's a lot of people that it's like they were a straight A student, or they were at least like an honor roll student, and they're just pushing to get that 70%. They're just
Mhm.
doing everything they can to pass. And there's a lot of people who can't even do that.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean it's a different level now, right? It's like it's like yeah, moving up the belt ranks, right? Like it's
yeah,
like yeah, you were a really good blue belt, but yeah, are you going to be a good purple belt? Or you're a really good purple belt, are you going to be a really good brown belt? You're a really good undergraduate student, are you going to be a good med student? Like, and then you're a good med student, are you going to be a good resident? So it's like it's kind of like that.
yeah, and it's always getting reshuffled. Like some people have like they did anatomy master's degrees. I think that group is doing pretty good. That's probably like 5 people.
Oh, that's cheating.
Uh,
That's basically cheating. Like they should.
it's only 9 weeks. It's just one block. Like when we get to physiology,
They had an anatomy master's degree and they're doing first year med school anatomy. Like,
yeah.
God.
There's yeah, and but you just have. It's like you can't compare yourself to them. It's like you're
Yeah.
starting out. You just started jujitsu and you're working out with a college wrestler or something. It's
Yeah.
like you're gonna
That's a
just
good analogy.
you gotta just have an awareness. Um, but it's like it's easy to stay in shape when it's like within striking distance of an A, or like getting straight A's, um, or even like you have like a really solid, like I don't know, like a 3.5 GPA.
Right.
and you like you're averaging like, A minuses like across the board. Maybe you take like a B somewhere, but you're never going to get a C, and because you're
Right.
just,
Right.
it's like, and then it's like, the only question, you work out, like, yeah, you have some studying to do and you got to do it at the right time. And maybe there's a little bit of pressure to like study when you want to be working out, but really the only thing that's like keeping you from being working out is like, oh, I'm sore from the last one, I feel lazy.
Right. Right.
This is like, this is above and beyond working a 9 to 5 job, like a
Right.
40-hour work week, like where there's, the work ends. This is like you're bringing work home with you. You
Yeah.
will not get to the end of it by the time that that test comes.
No,
And
for sure.
so everything that you do other than studying is a risk.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely.
and
Yes.
so you're like, but the thing is, if all you do is study, and this is where I'm maybe I'm a little bit ahead of the curve from some of these kids, because I did poorly on the first test, and then I came up, and now I'm still going higher. A lot of people like hit that first test and then they took a dive
Right.
because the methods they were using weren't sustainable, because they were
Right.
using lots of caffeine, staying up late.
Right.
And I don't talk to everybody about this, but it's like that's a common response. Like, oh, I'm gonna just gonna bust out the coffee and have some late nights. And it's like, well, good luck, because
Coffee, bro. Come on, be real. Adderall.
oh
Like that. Yeah, that's the big one. Like yeah, I'm just gonna pop Adderall for a week and I'll be fine.
yeah, so that I mean that could probably get them through like a block or two, but the toll is gonna come due.
Yes.
So
And
the
and
hard,
and now that I'm on the other side, I can tell you it does, and it does catch up to
yeah.
people. You
Yeah.
know.
So I've kept my caffeine down to, before I was only like coffee once a week. And not even a lot, like just one cup of coffee, or like one shot of espresso. So
Right.
now I've got 2 days a week I can have coffee. Um, and I've kept it there. I'm still working out like 6 times total between like jujitsu and like strength sessions.
Yeah.
Um, like that's like my baseline, but like I was definitely not able to get, like I got like 2 jujitsu sessions in, um, and then like for the first 2 weeks, and then I was able to get up to like 4 or 5, and then zero for like week 4, and now I'm
Yeah.
back up, and I'm like, because and now I'm back, and I'm like, okay, this week's gonna be better, and some of it's just due to when people want to show up. So like I don't have a lot of control over it, but I'm like, I'm just gonna survive. And so
Yep.
it's weird to be always bringing work home, and because it's like, and having that pressure, like your relationship to working out, my relationship to working out anyways has had to change, because it's like, okay, if I start to just like let this workout slip and let that workout slip and let that workout slip, it's like when I go to open mat this weekend, I'm going to be a whoopee cushion.
Right.
And it's and I'm still just barely, like I'm passing the class. I'm
Right.
doing
Right.
all this to pass the class, not to like crush the class. And
Right. Right.
it takes everything that you have, and you get to get by. You get to survive.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So like I first of all I want to thank you for your honesty, right? Because I was the same way in med school. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh man, like I got A's on everything, right? Like there was plenty of times where I was just happy to pass, right? So I wasn't the strongest, student in my class, right? Um, so I've had like keep that in mind, right? So I'll come back to that, right? So I've had numerous conversations throughout, my journey with people, classmates, right? Like classmates. Like I remember specifically, I had one conversation with one of my classmates. He was actually one of my good friends, where he legitimately was like worried for me because he felt like I was working out too much, right? And
Yeah.
I know this sounds crazy, but like I think he was coming from a good place. He was saying like, look, man, like, you're spending all this time working out, you're taking away from your studying, you're barely passing some of these exams. Like, what if you fail?
Well, sometimes working out does have a benefit on your
Yes.
performance in school. So you have to
And
have
that
it
was, yeah, that
at
was my
least
mentality. That was my
relationship.
mentality. And that's why I told him, look, I'm justified my working out, right? I justified like, look, I need to do this to be happy enough and have enough energy
Yeah.
to study and take on the demands, right? So that was the conversation. But again, this guy like was coming from a good place, right? Where he was like, look, like maybe you can work out less, you know, the next 2 weeks or the next month or whatever, right? But in my mind, like I was like, look, if I stop working out or if I cut down the working out too much, then I'm gonna fall off and I'm never gonna be able to get back onto it, right? So that was one thing.
Yeah, it's also like the amount of workout that I need to get the benefit meant like the clarity that someone might get from Adderall. And I've never used Adderall, so I'm just hypothesizing, but it's like
Yeah.
there is a certain wall that I have to push through that actually takes another person
Right.
trying to choke me.
Okay.
So like, and I'm really grateful because I just ran into so Liberty University, it has a really awesome, very successful undergrad program. And up until like 2011, they had a D1 wrestling program.
Okay.
But then this thing called Title IX came through, and they're like, oh, if you don't have equal representation in men's and women's sports, then something's got to go. So their wrestling team switched to a club team.
Okay.
But basically, it has the same amount of funding. I don't know what they do with scholarships, but I know schools do all kinds of things to sweeten the deal. They have the same coach. They have the same wrestling room. And they compete against a lot of the same schools because they just have dual meets against D1 schools, and then they go to a different league or a different division for the national championships. So they're still a very elite team.
Yeah, competitive.
It's the same coach, the same resources, and maybe they took a hit on the amount of talent they're allowed to recruit. But anyways, so like the assistant coach, I trained with him like this morning. And he was like, dude, yeah. I was like, I know season starts on the 28th. I can't make the tryouts, but I'm just trying to come in like once or twice a week. And he's like, oh, dude, yeah, come on in. I was like, sweet. This is great. So I'm excited for that because even that, just like at like on a local jiu-jitsu level, it can be hard to find, like for me to find
Sure.
like that kind of intensity. We got 2 classes a week, but they're in the evenings and really hard for me to like hit like really, really hard training and get in at 9 p.m. because I go to bed at 10.
No, I mean you have to like make the best of your situation, right?
Yeah,
That's kind of been my mentality through all of it, right? And I'm happy to say I feel like I have made the best out of each different situation I found myself in. But going back to this friend that I'm telling you, the same friend that was like trying to talk me out of working out, but again, he was coming from a good place.
Right.
So I made up my mind that no, I'm going to work out regardless. And I also made up another thing, which maybe we could talk about later, where I said I'm not going to take Adderall. Right. I did try Adderall in undergrad a few times. Right. Public omission, public
statute of limitations, long expired.
Yes. Yeah. So I did. I tried Adderall in undergrad a few times and it did not sit well for me. And if I'm being honest, I don't even think it really helped me to that point. It just made me like paranoid and sweaty and dry mouth. But anyway, but one of the things that I told myself before I started med school was like, look, I'm going to pass or fail, but it's going to be on my own merit, right? Because I respected the medical profession enough to say, hey, look, one day somebody's life is going to be dependent on me and my knowledge, right? And my training, and it needs to be real. Like it has to be like I was fully aware and present for these years of school, right? And as a result, now I'm prepared to save this life, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was like one of the agreements I made with myself. And then one of the other agreements I made with myself was like I'm going to try to at least maintain the level of fitness that I have, because I also fortunately had an understanding of like, okay, like being healthy, I think will ultimately help me have the stamina to take on all the grueling medical training I'm about to go through. Okay?
Oh, it does.
So now. I think so, but so it's just a difference in mindset, right? So this guy, right, like not to knock him, but a different conversation I had with him was like, hey, I don't have time to work out right now, but I'm going to start working out again in my 3rd year of med school, because once I get through basic sciences, like clinical years won't be as demanding. I'm going to be in like New York or Michigan or Florida or somewhere like that. So I'll be able to join a gym and I'll have access to the gym and I'll start working out then. So he explained that. He explained that to me about what his plan was to get back in shape.
Yeah.
Okay. So he did not get in better shape his 3rd or 4th year. He only, got fatter, like unhealthier. Right. So I saw him like 3rd or 4th year and I was like, hey man, like what happened? Like, I thought you said you were going to like, get in shape.
Oh boy,
So
yeah.
I did. I mean, I told you, like, I'm not always the nicest person, especially if you're my friend. If you're my friend, I'm very free with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna be.
Yeah.
I'm the more I like you, the more I will
Well, he had the
joke with you.
audacity. He had the audacity to get in there and try and, dial up some life, counsel on your part, which is like,
Yeah, yeah, no, I know. He was trying to, sorry, like he was trying to give me life advice. He was trying to
yeah,
give me life advice about, like, which again, I really do believe he was coming from a good place. So I thank him for that. But anyway, so I said that to him, like, hey, like, well, and he's like, no, no, well, now he told me, no, like, yeah, it's just, I don't have any time now. So I'll start in residency. I'll
yeah. No,
start working out.
no, your life's over, bro.
So
Game on.
this is sad. I get no joy out of saying this. I get no joy out of saying this. What ended up happening with this guy is he actually failed his step 1 or step 2, right? And he didn't end up matching in his residency. Didn't end up matching in a residency from what I've heard, and now he's like not in good health at all, right? So like, I'm not saying, oh, I won, but it was one of those scenarios where I'm like, man, like, you like, honestly, sorry, like, harmed your health by not being active at all or eating healthy or having pretty bad habits for 4 years. You can't even justify that now because you didn't even pass your board exam, right? And
Yeah,
now, like,
like
now,
you capitulated to all this fear and still lost.
exactly, exactly. So like, I mean, I'm not saying, oh, I won, but like, dude,
Oh,
I'm glad I, at the very least, like, I at least maintained a level of health and fitness that I was happy with, that is now allowing me to do the things I like to do and live the life that I want to live. And I do believe it helped me pass the boards,
well,
right?
dude,
Because
so
of the,
here, this is what we're here to do, and I think you'll agree with me on this. Is like we are like putting this information out there, having these conversations like publicly. Like we are here to fight against that idea that
for
your
sure.
health can wait, that
Yeah.
that your life needs to be, you have to put everything on hold. Like
Right.
you will if that is your solution to the problems that you encounter in this process, you will never develop any other way of solving problems when they come to you, and they are never going to stop coming.
I
And that's
agree.
why you have to be diligent about like taking care of yourself. That's like bare sustenance level.
Dude, it's a bare minimum, right? But that it's a bare minimum that, again, what we talked about earlier, like group think, right? Group think, or like, people accepting things like in med school or residency. We're talking about a bare minimum as far as like maintaining yourself, right? Or
Yeah,
or, or
that's fine.
maintaining.
Like I'm doing that, and I'm
Yeah,
trying to get above that. Um, so, and I'm just being honest about it. I know that I'm going to get there because I'm right now I'm building capacity, and I know that I'm going to get 4 to 6 hours in my week back after
yeah.
anatomy's over.
At the very least, you haven't given up. Like, you still have a plan. You still have, you're still trying to figure out a program that's going to work for you. So that's something,
Yeah,
right? I'm talking about majority of the people around me during
yeah,
that time collectively saying, we don't have time to do the bare minimum of taking care of ourselves as human beings,
yeah. And they
right?
probably weren't athletes in the first place. I mean, maybe
Sure.
more, but
But
uh,
either way, Scott, like, either way, I could tell these people had a disappointment, right? Like, they were disappointed. There was a level of disappointment in themselves,
yeah,
that there was a level of health and fitness that they felt at some point in their life, and now they were much lower than that,
yeah. That's
right? Which I feel like, for me at least, would be a disappointing reality,
for sure.
right? I feel like if I was in better shape 5 years ago, 10 years ago than I am now, that would be hard for me to accept, because I am just so quickly deteriorating or declining in my level of health.
Oh, dude, it's hard for me to accept right now. Like
Yeah,
I'm really glad that I got to go to open mat. And I'm really glad like we've got like at least one pro MMA fighter. There's definitely someone there who's like a pro grappler. And then we have a couple other guys that are black belts that have regular jobs, but they train more than I do. And
sure.
I mean, I just like I basically had like one off week,
Yeah,
and and it was like, oh man, we can't let that happen again.
Well,
And
that might also be a level of like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think you can call it body dysmorphia exactly, but it's a version of body dysmorphia. I'd say like it's like a training dysmorphia where like,
oh yeah,
because I'm so used to training every day. Like I'll try to like before this tournament, for example, I'll try to like cut back my training just to give my body a little bit of time to heal and rest going
yeah.
into the tournament. But like I struggle with like, oh no, like my timing's off, like my cardio is off, like because I like literally am one less session this week than the normal weeks, you know, and then it's just like
My
it.
timing's off. It's real for me. It's not real for you right now. That's not true. But it really did it fall off by like a lot? No, I don't think so. I
Yeah, I
was
mean, like it's only been a week, Scott. Like,
yeah. Well, so like weeks 1 through 3, I just figured out how to make my strength training like more of a circuit base that just got my
okay,
heart rate like really
yeah,
high,
yeah,
and man, it just
more
makes
efficient.
it's a nightmare. Those
Yeah,
workouts are a nightmare.
yeah,
But then I had like one weekend, and it was one of those times I only got to train 3 times that week, and the open mat was like the only time I could really go hard. And then and I did great, and I was like, oh, this is if I can just do this and pass my class,
yeah.
um, like watch out because I just solved this whole thing. And
Yeah,
then
no, okay, so I'll tell you what I did, right? I'll tell you what I did, and I mean, take it or leave it. It may not be the best advice, right? So I got very good, right, at knowing what it would take to get 80% on my exams.
oh,
80 to 8.
this is a thing. Yeah, 80
Yeah,
is a great place to be.
yeah. I got
Um,
very good. I got very good. 80 to 85. I knew exactly how much I would have to study and how much I would have to learn to get an 85%, maybe an 80%, somewhere between 80 and 85% on the exam, right?
yeah,
So now some people like I remember again these are conversations I had with my classmates where they would be like, oh well, you know, you're getting 85%. Why not study a little bit more and get 90 or 95, right?
because I'm locked in,
Because
I can excel in
no,
every
no, because
category.
yeah, it would take so much more time and effort to go from an 85 to a 90, right? And in my mind, being going because I knew I was going to go into eventually I knew I was going to go into primary care general medicine. I felt like 85% was good enough for me to do a good job at my job, right? No matter what anybody says, right? I don't know. Some patient might find out, oh, you were getting 85% in med school. That's not good enough to be my doctor. Okay, fine.
That's
But
right. He passed the bar by 15%.
yeah,
So I mean,
yeah,
this is about getting licensed and not about
exactly.
so
Exactly. So what I'm saying is like I got really good at figuring out what it took to get 85%, and then as soon as I realized I reached that level of knowledge and understanding in the subject, I would stop studying, and then I would take the time to go work out, train jiu-jitsu, do whatever I wanted to do
yeah.
because I felt like that is also what I needed to do to stay sane during that time, right? So like when you develop that sensitivity of what it takes to get 85%, like for me that was huge. My quality of life dramatically improved
Yeah.
once I realized that,
Yeah.
right?
I'm
And,
developing that feel, but yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Like I said, some people would tell me like some of my classmates would be like, oh well, that's not good enough. You're not shooting for excellence and things like that. I mean, sure, but like I said, like there were people who
Transcript.
and there are some of those people, right? Again, not saying that I won, but some of those people burned themselves out and failed later on. Their third year, their fourth year, they failed their boards. Something happened because they pushed themselves too hard in the first 2 years, and that was they didn't have the energy or the ability to finish.
Well, this is yeah. Well, we were gonna end up talking about this at some point because this is the issue that I'm trying to expose, but I'm basically this is what I'm fighting. I'm like I am like I'm doing jujitsu and I'm still gonna compete and do that. I'm gonna train all the freaking time, totally, yes. Or at least like every day or 5-6 times a week. But the idea that oh you can just be you can treat yourself poorly
Yeah,
and be successful and that's worth it. We need to have a much higher resolution conversation about just what's going on there because there's some things that it can be really good to push through, like to be an elite athlete. There are levels of pain and discomfort that are going to get you to a new level, and then there's pain and discomfort that is going to turn you into a shell of yourself. And maybe you're special like David Goggins. And you can't stand that I'm gonna. Who knows what he would have to say? He'd probably like some components of what we're doing here, and he'd probably be like, "Yeah, but you just gotta fucking go for it every day."
Well, even so even like, I mean, speaking of like, well, we could talk about David Goggins. I mean,
he's the example though. He's the example of like, if you want to have his injuries, you can go that hard.
Right.
He is the example of sort of what med students do to themselves mentally and physically by being, totally unbalanced in their life. And that idea that, oh, I can be poor to myself now because I have this, I have that kind of that leeway. I have that flexibility, like have some sort of like health buffer because I'm young or like, who knows. And I can just do this for like a couple years and come out of it and just shake it off. It's like your body's going to change. You're not going to be in your 20s. Most of them are not going to be in their 20s by the time they finish residency. And then by the time you do, it's like, dude, there's a big difference. So anyways, that's something that I'm really passionate about going after. And you've already said it, and people need to hear that. Like,
no, as am I, and I think that's definitely like, everything that you're saying, I'm right there with you as far as like it is very much, I'd say, a passion of mine too. The one thing I'll say is this to all the people that and I saw so many examples of this, of people who are like, oh, I'm going to like put a hold on my diet, on my exercise, on just like properly taking care of myself, and I'll get back to it eventually when I have time, right? Like this dream time in their life that's coming up. It's coming. It's always coming. It's coming like after first year, after second year, after third and fourth year, during residency, after first year after intermediate residency, they're gonna have all this time to exercise and work out. Or after residency or during the fellowship, it's not as hard or it's not as busy, so they'll have more time. I'll tell you right now, Scott. So I'm starting my fourth year as an attending now. So I've done 3 years. Yeah. So So I started. So starting now, I am in my fourth year as an attending physician. Okay. I'll tell you this. I am still just as busy or more busy than I was in med school and in residency.
Yeah.
Right. Because there were weeks of med school where I had a lot of time to train. Right. There was weeks of residency, like I'd be on like some like, rural medicine rotation, right? Where like they only needed me in clinic from like 9 to 11 every morning. And then they'd say, yeah, that's fine. Like you're free to go. And I'd have all day after that to like work out and train and all that. So there were periods in residency, not all the time. Obviously there was times where like, man, I was like getting crushed at work, but there were just times where I had a lot of time to work out. One thing I'll say about an attending now, like I do have I make sure I have time to train and work out and take care of myself.
Yeah.
But I also work every single day now, right? I work basically 7 days a week, I work 7 days a week. I have a full schedule pretty much 5 days a week, right? So like this like magical time where all of a sudden I'm going to have all this free time to like work out, train, take such good care of my health. That time has not yet arrived. Yeah. Okay. And guess what? I'm starting to realize, and I think I realized pretty early on, it's never going to arrive. It'll never be the perfect time for you to maximize your health. It'll never be the perfect time for you. As far as jiu-jitsu goes, it'll never be the perfect time for me to chase my dreams of being a black belt world champion. It'll never be the perfect time for me to chase my dream of being an ADCC world champion, right? Like though you have to understand that it'll never be a perfect time. It's just something you have to do yourself. You have to make it happen yourself, and you have to start now, because the longer you wait, the harder it's going to get.
I totally agree. There's that one kid, he went into psychiatry, but you're off Instagram, so you don't see this. I think it's like Jack Goodman's Dr. Goodman, but he did a good job like documenting his med school experience and like getting into med school, and now he's going into psych. I think he's in residency or maybe he just finished, but he's made some really good little clips about like, oh, my life is going to be okay. Like I'll get to that part of my life later when I have more time, And it just goes all the way to retirement. And it's like, you didn't do it,
Yeah.
And that's a scary reality. And I I'm a very like I struggle to be in the present, not because I'm stuck in the past. If I'm struggling to be in the present, it's because I'm thinking about next week and next month and next year.
Right.
So I'm very sensitive to things that are. I'm like, actually, the end of this year, I'm trying to have this many of this many training sessions like completed and like in
Right.
my history, um, and it's something I take really seriously. That being said, I am definitely in the trenches with this anatomy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah. No.
and it is definitely like I have had to say like a few times like when anatomy is over or when I figure out how to get it under control. I think that's
Right.
what I say that more is like once I have like dialed in how I'm going to attack it and I can
Sure.
compartmentalize it and turn it into like a nice little weekly routine. Once that happens, then I can start doing stuff. So I might start like I might teach a class or something just so I have like a guaranteed training spot or
Right.
two during the week.
Yeah.
Things like that. But yeah, it's true.
So
Your life's not waiting for you.
no.
Um,
No. No. Yeah.
and this is basically what people need to hear. So I'm getting a little bit amped too, and it's been harder and harder to not talk about or like let it slide to my classmates that like I'm doing jujitsu. Like I went to like an out of school function and I wore a jujitsu shirt, and I was very cautious about it because I know how people can be, but I'm really impressed with the culture at my school. And I also haven't given anyone any reason to think that I'm like not taking school seriously or like I'm at risk or something. Maybe on the first test, but it was just I was like even that first test I was like this doesn't mean anything. I've been out of school for 4 years. I just don't care. Like I'm gonna be fine. I'm not even gonna have to retake a single test for this course. I'm gonna more than pass. And so, anyways, I wore the shirt, and then someone asked me like one question about it. We had one little conversation about like they're like, man, yeah, I really that's something I actually really want to do. And I was just like, really, like, have you started at all? And they were like, no, I think I'm gonna get to it in third year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, well, I didn't want to go too far with them because I'm still trying to be humble about
Yeah. Yeah.
I am passing anatomy. Um, and anything can happen. I think I'm going to more than pass it, and I am training, but that took a lot. I mean, this has been the challenge of a lifetime. It has been the last 4 weeks for sure, and
Yeah.
just to like is like this person who has like no real athletic background and is a med student and a father. Um, are they ready to like start approaching their life that way? I didn't have I don't know. I just at that in that passing conversation, I was like, I basically told him, I was like, well, jujitsu is basically as a business model, unlike a lot of martial arts, it's designed for you to be able to start it when you're 30 or 40. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that do, which is definitely, it's the opposite of someone that I knew a little bit better. Um, and I think maybe when I'm more established in this, like that's a video that I'll make is like, here's what I'm doing. Here are the results. Here is how I am doing it. And
Right.
you can do it too. There is room to improve. I am not
Yeah.
the best at these things, but you can definitely take it and run with it. And I think there's a few people that already listen to us that I already know, like, yeah, you can do better than I did. And I'm just trying to make it tangible. Because no one else is, you know.
No, that's cool, man. I mean, and that's why, like, I mean, I'm excited about the project and everything because it is like like I've said before, like when it felt like at least when I was doing it, there was nobody else that had done it, or at least I didn't have I didn't have resources to like. I think it was so. I did reach out. Like I reached out to the one person I reached out to was Hillary Williams. I don't know if you remember her, but she was incredible. Like she won black belt worlds. I think she like beat Gabby Garcia. Like she was very well decorated female grappler. Okay.
An engineer.
Um,
There's someone who was like really involved in higher education in the women's division in the
yeah. No.
gi.
So Hillary Williams basically she like won like black belt worlds. Like she was very accomplished. Has like basically all the grappling accolades you could hope for, and then like ended up going to med school, right? And now I think she's a neurologist.
No,
She's a neurologist. Like practicing neurologist. Seems to be crushing it. But anyway, so like I would message the same way you messaged me. I would message her like back when I was like applying to go to med school, and then also like in med school. You know, and then obviously I think she was in med school or residency at the time, so she was super busy. So like it was even nice of her to just even respond to my messages.
Yeah. Maybe
But
we should see if she wants to come on and be interviewed.
that'd be super. I think yeah. No, she's super, dude. She's super nice from all my interactions with her. She's super nice, super humble. But yeah, like I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like other than messaging her and asking her questions and getting responses from her, you know, I didn't. That was like the only form of guidance that I felt like I had through the
Yeah.
process. You know.
Well, just from me watching you from afar, and I still think it's beautiful that you got rid of social media because, I mean, the 20 minutes a day that it gets out of me, I think, or maybe 40 is like, it's, I mean, I could have done something probably better, and I probably could have felt better about myself probably too if I didn't have it. But watching you on there, I mean, I have been studying, I've been preparing for this exact moment in my life. I've been preparing for specifically this challenge, and I did everything I could to equip myself to basically like land, set up a routine, set up a schedule, and then get all this stuff done week to week to week to week. And
yeah, no, I mean, dude, that's
because
the way I think that's the way to do it. Like I think you have to plan. You know what I'm saying? Like I planned, but looking back at it now, I could have planned better. You're like, I'll be honest, like right now, to even talk, like the conversations I've had with you, like you already have a better game plan and strategy than I think I had. But I'm sure you'll look back when you're done with everything and you passed your boards, you've done residency, you know, you're now a practicing physician. You may look back at your journey and go, yeah, I mean, I'm proud of what I did, but I could have done it better. There were things that if I had known then what I know now, I could have been more efficient. I could have been more, you know, and I mean, like, you know, med school itself, because things are happening so fast, you have so many exams to pass. It really, I think a lot of times it just comes down to, hey, did you study the right way or the wrong way?
yeah, that's
Right?
it. I learned
Yeah.
so much and then like bombed my first test. And I was like, this is crazy. I learned
Yeah.
more than I've ever learned in my life. And I still bombed that test. And
Yeah.
then next test, it was like, okay, I learned just as much, but I just did better because I
Yeah,
changed.
exactly. So a lot of it is like, yeah, it is strategy. Like a lot of it is strategy. A lot of it is logistics. Like I was saying earlier, like being on the Caribbean island and like the power going out and like, you know, the water running out, like small things like that can really throw you for a loop. You know what I'm saying? Like there's certain things that are out of your control that happen
Yeah, dude,
that
I had power outages here. It was nothing like that, but we do
yeah,
have like a sloppy power line. And I do have like a mattress cover that like heats and cools, and I'm so used to it now that I'm a little bit it throws me for a loop, and it
yeah.
kind of hurts my sleep when I don't have power. Um, so boohoo. But yeah, I'm like everything is very sensitive when it comes to like having power and running water.
Yeah. No, but
And
the stakes are so high in med school, you know. I mean, it is. It's like the equivalent of like competing at black belt worlds, where like, oh, you know, like if your weight cut goes well or if it doesn't go well, like that can make the difference between you showing up and fighting well or not, right? And I think like that's the equivalent of what I experienced in med school, where like me going into an exam, like getting like good sleep and good, you know, like whatever, all the little variables can and often do end up mattering, you know, as far as like, hey, did I pass or I failed, you know. So it does feel like, you know, an athlete trying to peak for, you know, a big event. Like it has those elements in it.
and that is actually the framework with which I'm approaching this. And honestly, that's the place where I have the most fun. Is like there's the learning it, but then there's the like, ooh, I think I'm like getting an edge on this
Right.
information right now, and I'm doing it a little bit smarter. And it's like there's the satisfaction that I get from having like a good week where I did, you know, I got jujitsu in like 4 times and I worked out like 2 or 3 times and I covered all my information. I'm like, ooh, that's a special feeling.
No,
And
it's a high, right? I think it's a high, and it's been a high. It's been so for me, it's been a high since my first year of med school, kind of like where you're sitting right now, right? So imagine like
amazing.
I've been experiencing those highs for the past 4 years of med school, 3 years of residency, and then another 3 years of attending life, right? So what is that? 10 years, right? So for the
Yeah.
past, yeah. So for the past
I
10 years, I have thoroughly enjoyed making small adjustments and reaping the benefits of those small adjustments, right? And swearing by those, and basically claiming that that is the reason why I was able to find success, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So now imagine that mindset, right? Versus the typical med student mindset, which is what? It's like evidence-based, data-driven, like, you know, to the point where like everything is skepticism, right? Everybody is skeptical about everything, right? Like, at least that's been my experience. Like all my co-residents, all my med student friends, like they were just like, yeah, no, that shouldn't matter. That doesn't matter. That's not that big of a deal. You know, like whether you work out or not, that shouldn't make that much of a difference. Whether you eat healthy or not, that shouldn't make that much of a difference. You know, like it's just there's a I don't know if you've experienced it. I feel like you have. It's a very skeptical kind of environment where like it's hard for people to buy into stuff or believe in stuff, right?
Yeah, I really keep my cards very close to my chest with my classmates. I treat it
Right.
like a job. Um, and like my career has already started. And so I treat them like my colleagues. Like I expect the same ethical behavior out of them that I expect from them in the workplace when we're practicing medicine. And
Right.
I make the same kinds of relationships that I would make at a job that was really high stakes. And
Right.
I treat them all like adults.
No, that's good because, like, I mean, like, and the thing is this: your career is starting now. So,
Yeah.
like, whether you want to accept it or not, like, your reputation starts now, right?
Yeah.
So,
So
like, I'll give you. There was a guy that I went to med school with. Like, he was one of our best students. He was really, really smart, but the guy was like a total sorry. Like, he was like just a pig, right? Like, as far as like he was sleeping around, he was cheating on his girlfriends. Like, you know, he was just like sorry, like not. He was just like a misogynistic type of guy, you know? And he thought it was funny and he didn't really think it was going to matter or affect him or anything like that. But pretty early on in med school, he developed this like reputation of just being like a sleazy womanizer, right?
yeah,
So
that would not go over well at our school where I'm
yeah,
going to school.
yeah. So that followed him throughout med school, and then he like ended up matching it at his like 19th choice for residency.
Dang.
Like he had very good grades. He had very good grades. He had very good step scores and all that. But somehow I believe that his reputation of just being a dickhead, like, like affected him to the point where he dropped to his 19th ranked residency program. And I mean, you could tell me all you want that no, that's just the algorithm. No, I feel like they didn't rank him, or he got you know, he had to move all the way down quite a bit.
So if you know, I mean, if you know for a fact that he was scoring extremely well because I don't know, maybe he talked about it and he could prove
He
it.
did. I
Um,
mean, sorry, dude, like the guy was just a douche, right? The guy was
yeah,
just like,
so
sorry, he was a douche in every aspect of his life, right? So
yeah. I haven't honestly, I haven't met a single student like that. I have been all around impressed with the other students, but
yeah,
because I'm approaching it like professionally, having conversations like I'm the one that's cynical. I'm the one that's cynical because I'm like, what are the like I just don't believe in the potential of any good outcomes when I have a conversation with them about like, hey, check out my YouTube channel. Like, what's your
right,
Instagram? Like, let's connect. Like, let's chat. Like,
right,
only in like one case was there this kid who was like a wrestler that I've had like a couple conversations with, and but we still like I just because I know how things are going to go. Like I already know what people are going to say. So I
right,
don't really have an interest in like exploring it. I'm not like,
yeah,
oh, I just need to find like the one or two, three, four people that are going to like believe in me and what I'm doing. And then I'll be okay. It's like, I have my wife, I
right,
have my faith, and I have mats in my house
yeah,
and I've got you. I'm good. Like that
yeah,
I don't need any, support. I don't need anyone else cheering for it. And
I hear you.
I would say other students' perception of me is that I'm just a regular guy, like that is going to class and finding his way through the information just like them, and I want to get into a specialty just like them. And I just don't give anyone any room to think otherwise. And
No, I mean that's. I mean, I'm glad you figured that out because I had to figure that out the hard way, right? But I got to a point. Like I'll tell you a story really quick. I got to a point where it got so bad. I had so many unpleasant interactions with
yeah,
people regarding jiu-jitsu and what it meant for me and what it means to me. So it was my first year of residency, right? I was on my ER rotation, right? So I was doing emergency medicine, and you had to work 6 shifts a week on that rotation, right? And I was in South Carolina in Myrtle Beach, and the Charlotte Open was coming up, and I was a brown belt. Okay, so the Charlotte Open's happening, and I'm like, okay, so like I asked in advance for like that Saturday off, and when they asked me why that Saturday or something like that, I like made something up. I said like, oh, like, you know, like it's like my like Zoe, like 'cause I was dating Zoe at the time, so I was like, oh, it's Zoe's it was Zoe's birthday or something, right?
Okay,
So
yeah.
yeah, like I mean, it wasn't her birthday. Her birthday's in January, so this was like in October or November. So I was like, yeah, it's her birthday. So like I have to have this Saturday off, right? And they're like, okay, fine. So that was a while ago, right? So I asked for that Saturday off, and anyway, so I worked that Friday. One of my friends at the time said that he'd drive with me to Charlotte, so we'd leave like after my shift in the ER at like 9 p.m. Right? We leave, drive to Charlotte, which is 3 hours. So we get to Charlotte at like midnight. We stay in a motel, right? We get some like just pull into some hotels, like we get the hotel or the motel, sleep there, wake up, go compete, and I end up winning the Charlotte Open. Okay, so I win the Charlotte Open, right? And this is now there were many things that happened that led me to getting off Instagram, but this was maybe the first of many, right? So like then like because you know like I'm sponsored, like you know I have to in my mind I had to post that I won the Charlotte Open,
Yeah, and then
right?
with the director or whoever, someone sees it
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, Zoe's birthday."
Yeah. So I was worried about that, but fortunately they didn't connect the dots because I had asked for that day off well in advance, where they
Okay.
just I guess they didn't connect that.
Yeah.
But anyways, like so I come back, I leave as soon as the tournament is done because I have to work the Sunday shift, right? So I win the Charlotte Open, drive back to Myrtle Beach 3 hours, crash, go to sleep, wake up, and I'm back on the ER on Sunday, right? So I'm in the ER on Sunday, and our chief resident comes up to me, who I follow on Instagram, and he follows me on Instagram, right? And he goes, "Oh, hey, congratulations! I saw that you won the tournament." And he was like, "What is this? Like, what is this? Like, what was this
Nothing.
competition? Like, what?"
It's
And I
nothing.
was like, "Oh no!" I was like, "It's just for fun." It was just like a small local tournament. He's
Yeah,
like, "Oh
it's
no!" He was
like
like,
some father of four, it's like part-time guy.
yeah. I was like, "Oh yeah," you know, like I was like, "Yeah, it's just some small thing. I just did it for fun." Like, you know, like totally just downplayed, you know, that it was the Charlotte Open, and
It's a good tool.
you know,
I think that's the good. I have a lot of those responses like tucked away.
yeah. Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
I like fortunately he bought it, and he was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like, because I know if I told him yes, it was like a professional grappling event, you know, this is to qualify for the world championship, blah 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 blah. Like, oh my god, like that would have been, you know, like what are you thinking? Why do you think you can do that? Like how,
Yeah,
you know? And
the
then
gold
they
division in the IBJJF, you know, at a tournament that's going to be like well attended by some pretty big gyms in the area. Yeah, especially in a weight division. Yeah, like I get it. I mean, that's a serious event.
yeah, but no, I like so that was one of the, I was it like my nature, of course, like it was hard for me to do that because like I wanted him to like still I don't know at the time like I just wanted people to know like I'm good, I'm legitimate, like I'm a good like I'm good at jiu-jitsu, like I, you know, I'm not wasting my time, blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
like that was the first time that I was able to just swallow my pride and just go, hey, it was nothing, it's not a big deal, like it's a hobby, I do this for fun, you know what I'm saying? Like because to this day, like I cannot admit that I do jiu-jitsu for fun or as a hobby, right? Like I feel like it's a disservice to the amount of time that I put into training, and just not even forget training, not even the time. I just jiu-jitsu means so much more to me than just a hobby. Like I
Yeah.
refuse to like to admit that it's just a hobby. It's not a hobby for me. But I had to admit that it's a hobby so many times to so many different people just to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, and I mean, fortunately, I don't get like any guff from like actual athletes and competitors because I'm good enough for them to want me to actually be there.
Yeah.
But it's like it's definitely actually in one case it is like a little dagger that some people will reach for if there's a disagreement or I've rubbed them the wrong way. They will reach for that, and that's just which is a bummer. But in general, like I get taken seriously where I need to be taken seriously when I need to be taken seriously. And as long as that's there, like I feel pretty good. And I think, but just trying to get ahead of things. If it gets to the point where I actually have people on the internet that want to tell me how stupid this whole endeavor is or that it'll never work, I'm really excited to take on the persona of the greatest hobbyist of all time. And I would
Yeah,
be
no,
totally fine with that. So we can. That's a discussion for another day. I gotta cut it here, but we're obviously gonna have plenty more to talk about. So maybe by the next time we talk, I'll have improved, or I'll just be done with anatomy. I don't know. But thanks again so much for making the time.
no,
There's
for sure. Enjoy it.
a lot in here that I can think of like a few people that are listening are already going to be like, wow, okay. Because I try to be honest when people ask me like, well, how are you doing it right now? And I'm like, I am in like a growth phase and it will be over. And this block is this block, but I'm basically, it's like you have, there's like financial freedom. That's a thing. Well, there's also like academic freedom in med school, time freedom, and you have to earn it. And you don't get to just like start with it necessarily unless you're like Goodwill Hunting or something.
Yeah.
So I was like below average in every scoring category as an applicant. It was amazing. I got as many interviews as I did, and here I am. So really excited to document it and have these conversations, man. And you just
Oh, for sure.
you make it into something that it could never be with just me. And it's just awesome to be able to like connect and see like know that there's a result out there that's going to look something like I have some idea of what's possible. And but you working with me to make it better, and then hopefully, I mean, we can help other people out. Like we both know some young jujitsu guys that are like pre-med students right now that are like have very bright futures, and I'd love to see them take this and or even like I don't even know, like another sport, maybe you like professional kayaking or like mountain biking or something, I don't know.
Sure.
And you just want to keep going. The fastest, like the first guy to break the 4 minute mile. I can't
Yes,
remember.
was a med student, right? Or he was
Right,
applying to
yeah,
be eventually
exactly. And so so anyways, I gotta stop it there. But being economical with your time, that benefits everyone in jiu-jitsu. And the further I go down this path, I know that I'm going to end up learning about, discovering, and developing the highest yield training methods that you can possibly come up with, because those are the only ones that I have time for. But if you're a full-time athlete and you can do that, well, now you're getting better faster than anyone else. And that's like the final stage of sort of like people's development these days, I think. So, oh man, dude, it's so hard to get off this, but appreciate
it's an
you.
arms race. It's always an arms race. That's the
Oh
thing.
my
Like,
gosh,
that's what I've learned in this.
too interesting. You're gonna make it too interesting.
Make
I got places to be.
All right, we'll call it. We'll do it again next week.
All right, talk to you
All right,
soon.
brother. Thank you so much.